I was looking for ways to use LLMs to chat with my data, and I came across Looker Studio Pro as a solution. I think it's a really good option for individuals and small organizations that might already have Google Workspace. It's pretty lightweight and it was pretty easy to set up once I got into it, and the cost is pretty low. So there were a few demos of how it worked, but there weren't a lot of demos about setup. So I recorded what I did and I put this together to provide a resource that hopefully will save others a little bit of time. A few prerequisites: you'll need a Google Workspace account. The starter version works fine, but free Gmail doesn't work with Looker Studio Pro. So there is an expense or gateway to get started there. You also need a Google Cloud account that is set up and has an active payment method on file. The trial version didn't work for me. So you also need an existing project with a BigQuery data set. The demo that I'll do, I already have BigQuery and some data in there, so I'll access that. If you don't have that, you won't be ready to go right away. You can use Google Sheets, but there are some downsides that we can talk about later. Agenda of what I'm going to go over: I'll show what it took for me to upgrade to Looker Studio Pro from the free version of Looker Studio. That's not to be confused with the enterprise version of Looker, which is a very large product uh, from Google and a much bigger undertaking. I'll also go through setting up the platform and some permissions. I ran into a few errors, so if you run into those same errors, I can show you what I did to get past them. I have a quick demo of how the tool works, and then some concluding thoughts about ongoing use of the tool and ideas to make it better. So upgrading to Looker Studio Pro. In this, I'm just in my Google Workspace apps. Looker Studio Regular is an option for building dashboards. In this UI, it gave me this option to get Looker Studio Pro. I clicked on Tell Me More. Shows me that, okay, it's $9 a month extra per user, and it's got all these additional features, and that includes the chat feature. So I'm going to go ahead and upgrade. It immediately requires that I enter a Google Cloud project. So this is where having that active project with the right billing setup is important. I had just created my Google Cloud account, so I was operating off a free tier that didn't require billing to be connected yet. So I had to go in, make sure my billing was connected. But then I also waited overnight for everything to spin up in a line. And when I came back the next day, it actually worked fine. So I don't know that you need to wait quite that long, but waiting some time to make sure it spins up and gets through all those checks of startup might be a helpful um, pause in case you run into that issue. Once I got Google Cloud set up, I was able to get Looker Studio Pro working. In Looker Studio Pro, you'll have this left navigational menu. It has Conversational Analytics here, so you click on that and it brings you to your Conversational Analytics chat setup screen. So that's when I'm in here, but it's the first time I'm in here, so it gives me some best practices. I log in to look at the best practices. This red text immediately catches my attention. It basically says that the LLM can provide incorrect information, so it's best to always double check how the analysis is being done and that it's doing what you expect. Then it provides a list of features, so lets you talk to your data, create and manage data agents. I don't get too much into that, but that's a way to add more business context to your queries to you know, interact with that data in a slightly unique way. And then it also has more advanced analytics tools with Python, and I don't get too much into that either, but seems like a pretty robust tool for kind of the lower entry cost. So I'm going to close that. I go back into my tool, so you can see agent data sources. I go to connect my data source and hit BigQuery. It requires you to answer a few questions and do a little bit more setup. This is pretty fast. I think the next step is like a marketing setup, so pretty easy to answer these. Didn't have any any issues going through all that. So once I have all that set up, I'm trying to essentially connect my data sources. So I created a Google Sheet because I was having trouble connecting to BigQuery. Um, Doing some testing, I'm not able to connect to my Google Sheet either. And then suddenly this pop-up comes out of nowhere and says that you need Gemini in Looker to be enabled in order to access conversational analytics. So it let me get to the point of trying to use the tool before it popped this up, which I thought was interesting. But there is, another step you have to do to turn on Gemini before it actually lets you interact with your data. So let's go do that. Enabling Gemini. So I'm in my Google Cloud platform. There are a ton of settings in this tool, so I was a little bit concerned about finding the right one. I just started out by in this open search bar typing in Gemini for Looker, and then the first one looked good to me, so I clicked in just to see what it looked like. It's from Google. Looks like it enables Gemini in the right places. I scroll down and I see that it has Gemini in Looker, so I say, okay, I think this is the right one. I go ahead and enable it. Takes me to the API usage screen. Just shows you how many resources you've used over time. Obviously none at that point, but seemed like a good place to start. So that was the right setting that needed to be flipped or enabled. So once I got that set up, I was able to come back into Conversational Analytics and use it. So first step, once you're in here, little reminder, you have Looker Studio, you have your Conversational Analytics on the left menu. You have to connect a data source. So I'm going to go ahead and go to BigQuery. I'm going to select my first project, my sample e-commerce dataset, which is really just the Look e-commerce dataset, which is a public dataset available in Google Cloud. I copied that into my warehouse to use, so that's a good option if you're testing data. You can copy one of the public datasets. Select users. You notice I had to select a specific table to work in here, so then it pops up my chat. So how many unique users are in my table? I know that there's 100,000 in here, so I'll make sure it answers with that. Yeah, so it restates the question I'm trying to ask, says 100,000, perfect. I want to know what fields I can interact with, so what fields are available in my table? Cool, so it gives me this list. I have ID, first name, last name, email, age, gender, state, etc. I'm going to use country, actually, and I'm going to say how many users from each country. Group by country. Perfect. So it gave me this list of users, gave me this chart. Cool. Now let's say I want the chart to be a little bit more readable. Order the chart from highest to lowest number of users. Cool, so it can do that. It's able to do that analysis for me. I want to see a stacked bar chart using gender as the divider for unique user counts. Let's see if we can do something a little bit more intricate. Taking a little longer here to think. There it goes. It switched my ordering, but yeah, looks like it did a good job of creating the bar chart. I could say order by total count, highest to lowest, to just get my layout a little bit better. Cool, that looks much better. Okay, so one thing I'm going to try, since I'm in the users table, it connects to a lot of the other tables in my model. So I want to say how many products did users from each country buy? I happen to know that this is going to fail. Yeah. So since this is only connecting to one table, it doesn't allow me to reach across my entire model to do analysis. It's only doing analysis on that one table, which is a limitation for this. So some lessons learned to kind of close out. Talking to your data, it helps to know that table structure. So I asked what fields were available, because if you can say the specific field name instead of trying to force your LLM to figure out what you're talking about, it'll help it answer questions much more easily. I would also suggest adding some business context. So in BigQuery, you can add table descriptions, field descriptions, and a bunch of information about your data, a bunch of metadata about your data. All of that can be used by the chat, so having that information available will help improve your performance and accuracy of the tool. Next point is modeling for complex metrics. Since this doesn't reach across my entire model via the keys that are already there, it only lets you focus on one table. Creating the data model with all the metrics that you want to analyze, or a subset of the metrics that would go together and you want to analyze, is an important pre-work step. So you'll need views or some sort of transformation to build those models in your table structure that'll then allow you to chat with it. The last thing is just sensitive data precautions. It's don't always know how these LLMs are using our data for training, or where it's sending that data. So just using discretion when you have sensitive data, and even doing those roll-ups in the modeling step will help hide some of that information that you don't want shared more broadly. So just some ideas about how to use these chat tools a little more effectively. Well, that's all that I had. So reach out if you have any questions or comments. Happy to interact. Thanks.